didn't need it anymore.
Right.
He was so beyond the notes he wrote in school. It's sort of like if you have a college textbook that you put on the shelf, not that I'm speaking from experience, that
Sure.
you put on the shelf, and then 25 years later, you decide to finally start giving away some of your old books and realize you don't need Intro to Psychology from 20 years ago anymore on your shelf.
You almost have me convinced, except if I wrote down a way to slash a person to bits in one of those books, I would keep track of it. No?
Okay.
Both of you,
He wrote this.
I wish you guys could see them both just like, no, casually shaking their heads.
Here's the thing.
I'll tell you why.
He wrote that as an angsty teen, first of all. Second,
Right.
these are things that are now so innate to his being that he doesn't reference them anymore. It's not like he needs to go back and read what sectum centrum means. He knows it.
Right.
And he probably, in many ways, wouldn't even remember where he wrote it. Think about it. Do you remember where you wrote everything at 14?
I mean, I have a very organized shelf of diaries, so you're asking the wrong person there.
Like, what did I write in the margins of some of my books as in high school?
I don't know. I don't know what I wrote in them. I know the first diary that I ever had, my very first entry was, I hate mommy. She said she could take me to Legally Blonde too, and now she changed her mind. But it is interesting that they both turned to, because he didn't keep a diary, but Snape feels like someone who would want to keep a journal. And he would probably feel like, oh, that's too, pansy-ish or whatever. See what I did
Now,
there.
here's the funny. I believe this is my own headcanon. This has nothing to do with reality. This is not me saying it happened in the books, not the movies or anything like that. This is my headcanon. He too had a hidden, and it was never found, cabinet of memories.
Okay. All right.
There's no other way he did not go positively fracking insane with all that he knew and had done.
Yep.
Yeah.
And was able to stand in front of a class and teach people.
Okay, first of all,
they both have
headcanon.
this connection. Headcanon accepted.
Fully accepted.
Mm-hmm.
But I do think that's why he didn't consider, because right now you're comparing a diary to a textbook with notes in the margin.
An
that's old textbook.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
I don't think he thought of it with any great affection after he didn't need it anymore.
Okay, so that would actually
recognize Centum Sempra when Harry saw Draco and was like, "Oh, bring me your book." Because if you remember, that's the first time he asks about that book, is after he sees the results of a spell in his mind he knew he invented.
Yeah. So they don't quite have the same connection to personal memories. And that, I mean, and Voldy does have, like, he doesn't want people to know, but he also uses all of these things that are connected to his family and his ancestry because it's Slytherin.
And I have another one. Ooh, TC's about to explode.
Oh, TC just, yeah.
Don't forget what you're going to say. Keep it. You got it? You got it?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. The other thing I was going to say is because he is such a good Occlumens, I think he also probably blocked out a bunch of his own memories of things that were inconsequential. So where writing down or inventing sectum that spell and put down and writing in a book would have been a memory that he might have just hidden so far back in trying to keep up with things that it was no longer just important. So TC is about to explode. Go.
It's not an explosion. It's just a realization I had in the moment of something they have in common. They both collect treasures.
Yes.
And the difference,
I think that's what I was trying to say.
Behind the treasure, because Snape's biggest treasure was the picture he stole from the house. Because that is actual book canon, is that picture was ripped because he took it.
Yeah.
He didn't steal things to make him feel grander. He actually kept treasures of an emotional level.
I was going to say, and he didn't keep many.
He
very, very important that if he was to do it.
But Voldemort doesn't feel human emotion.
Well,
He feels anger, but not human connection.
Right, but Voldy
Right.
didn't collect things because he cared. Yes, he cared about them because they were important to something, but not because they were sentimental.
But he kept the things that were sentimental in the sense, I know this is going to sound weird for Voldy. The only thing Voldy was sentimental about, there were two things, I'll be honest. Two things. One, he was sentimental about his abilities to be a wizard and magical and powerful. That meant everything to him. And he was very, very sentimental about the connection to Hogwarts, which is why those were the treasures he collected.
Yes, but what I'm saying is it was not a love of those things.
No, I agree.
Which is a different, like the reason for collecting was very different, is what I was saying.
I agree.
Not that he doesn't, I get what you're saying. So let's go and focus on their differences, because there's a lot of them, in my opinion. And I think while they have things in common, most of those commonalities are differences still because of the way they reacted to them or the way they felt about them. But the biggest difference for me is Severus did a lot of evil, horrible, dickweed things.
Yes. Amen.
But not even in the end, for the last 20 years of his life, he did the right thing. Wrong reasons, wrong actions, was an asshole while doing them, but he was doing the right thing.
Sure.
Voldy never did the right thing, not even once. And the last 20 years of his real life, because, he started Horcruxes early, were spent getting more and more evil. Like, Snape was more dickhead. But he wasn't.
But I also want to point out, yeah, he wasn't evil, but if the side that could save Lily had been Voldy's side, he would have leaned further into that.
Yep, absolutely. Absolutely.
So it kind of questions, I don't know, evil is a strong word.
Here's the thing though. He promised to protect Lily's child. He did not promise to stay at the school, teach children, be in the area. He could have literally just walked and watched Harry's life from the sidelines, make sure he didn't actually die.
God, and that would have been so much better, because then he wouldn't be
been better, but
sitting on him.
Different story.
Yeah. Very different story.
It's not, and I know TC doesn't see it this way, but I do feel like he suffered for all of his adulthood, whether it was his own anguished suffering, whether it was that suffering put on him by others, whether it was punishment by Voldy's when he came back, it's not like his life was cake while he was being an ass, but doing the right thing.
Well, let me say this, because first of all, no, I absolutely believe he suffered, because hurt people. And I think that was the key to Snape. He got hurt, he was suffering, and I think when he suffered the worst is when he came for Neville the next day, abused Gryffindors and other classes. Like, I think he took out his trauma on students. So, and I think Voldy took out his trauma, strangely enough, on his Death Eaters.
That's the only people that were around.
Somewhat other people, but I don't think, I never got the impression from the books that Voldy was non-discriminate in his killing as much as he killed as he felt needed and then let his followers kill freely.
I think part of that was his
full of people.
Yeah, but I think part of that was his own, like, you don't deserve to be killed by me,
Right,
this
exactly.
this obsession with how amazing he was that is completely lacking from Snape.
Now there's an interesting difference. Okay.
I was gonna say I agree to a degree because I also think there was I didn't kill him in that mix. Like, yes, he's dead. Yes,
Plausible deniability.
that plausible deniability.
Oh,
Well, I do
yeah.
think here's an interesting thing about them that's a similarity and a difference. They both, and I hope I didn't lose my thought in the ether. They both, yes, egos. I remember. They both had very different egos.
Mm-hmm.
Voldy's ego was very much the greatness of himself. I am very, very egotistical ego. Whereas I think Snape was more beat down. So he did not, Snape never valued himself. I don't think Snape ever had that thought of I'm so great. ...
Because I think one of the major differences was going back to their upbringing. Valdi never knew his mother, never had anyone in his life that he was supposed to be able to count on. So he was much more self-reliant from a young age. Snape was hurt by people he was supposed to be able to rely on. And that kind of betrayal runs deep.
Yep. Now, having said that, these two very common but very different people get into each other's sphere. And on the surface, it is a Voldy is the master, Snape is the servant situation. But when you look at the story, that's why I write who is who. Because I think they both were both, but Voldy never knew he was also the servant.
Oh, yeah. I see what you're saying. Because he didn't know he was being manipulated, because if he did, he would have killed Snape.
Right?
And we wouldn't have the story.
Yeah.
It's crazy when we talk about how many little things, and like the butterfly effect. Bananas in Harry Potter. There are so many things, and it almost makes sense why Dumbledore had to be the chess player that he was. And it does redeem Snape a little bit that he was willing to, after he had lost Lily, like she died, that he was willing to continue to be a pawn. Or not a pawn, be a bishop.
A bishop.
We'll see a bishop.
Okay,
no,
just
I think that also comes. I'm sorry. I was saying, that also comes from the ego thing, because Snape reminds me of the old-fashioned priests who used to wear hair shorts and whip their own backs. Like, I think Snape saw
Who
taking
used to
care
wear
of
what did you just say?
a hair shirt.
What's that?
I'll come back and explain that for you later.
Okay.
But
I think our listeners might need that too.
I'll explain in a minute. I think he saw taking care of, well, not taking care of, protecting Harry and doing Dumbledore's bidding as penance for not following up and being with Lily in the first place, for taking this other path, for allowing her to be killed by the people he most bonded with. I think he was doing penance. Now, hair shirt. Quick history lesson. Back in the day, especially Catholic priests, they used to wear very rough shirts made of boars, sometimes boar's bristle. If you ever had a boar's hair brush, you know how hard that is.
Yeah.
But the boar's bristles would be on the inside of the shirt. So when you put it on, constantly scratching your skin as you move.
Self-flagellation. Yeah.
It's part of that, as well as whipping their own backs and flagellation. So yes, that's a hair shirt.
Yeah, that's something Voldy would never do. What do you think it would
Look
take,
at Butterbeer. Sorry, go
if
ahead.
anything? What do you think it would take, if anything, for Voldemort to want to